Flavor Balance Heat, the podcast for hot sauce lovers and makers, is brought to you by Scoville.com. Try Scoville.com's hot sauce subscription box, where you pick the heat, flavor, and food pairings you want in your box. Get 1 or 3 bottles delivered to your door each month. Choose your heat level, flavor profile, and food pairings. And it's completely customizable each month. You no longer have to worry about getting sauces you don't like or won't use. Scoville.com specially curates each month's box based on your personal preferences. And best of all, High Desert Sauce Co., Butterfly Bakery of Vermont, and Irish Spike's unique hot sauces are all available at Scoville.com. Welcome to Flavor Balance Heat, the podcast for hot sauce lovers and makers. I'm Spike.
I'm Zac.
And I'm Claire.
And today we have a very special guest, Andrew Zimmern. Hello, Andrew.
Welcome to the shit show.
Yeah, baby.
Obviously, you like spicy food. What got you into spicy food, and then what made you decide to collaborate with Spike on a hot sauce?
Oh, wow. I've just been into food my whole life. And my parents were big eaters, and they traveled, and they ate to travel and traveled to eat. I was exposed to a lot of cuisines as a young boy growing up in New York. I mean, like at age 4, 5, 6, 7, eating in, restaurants with my parents. Those days, there was no children's menu. You automatically ate whatever that restaurant served. But at home, my parents really cooked with a lot of flavor. A lot of food in the 60s was boiled, bland, and boring. It sort of took after the foods of the British Isles. My parents were very avant-garde when it came to food. And even as a young kid, summertime, we grew hot peppers in our garden, more than one kind. So, the idea that something was spicy, we loved Chinese food, we loved Mexican food, and by the way, sought out legitimate, honest, authentic Mexican food. And then I also traveled with my dad and was sort of at the whim of whatever people were serving wherever we were going. So I never knew a time where I didn't love big flavors. And I take great, I feel bad because, I'm at these food conferences and, I'm with a lot of my peers, and there's some young, smart person who, says, oh, there's 4 flavors or 5 flavors. And then I end up, eviscerating someone. They always leave out spicy. They seem to always include umami, but they never get sort of all of them sort of in there. I think when I went to Asia for the first time is where I really saw what sour and bitter did with, heat, spice heat. And that even is near East Asia in the Indian subcontinent, and going to Desai countries, Sri Lanka and Pakistan and India, where they use a lot of sour and a lot of bitter with heat. And that just got my mind going into a whole other realm. And it is kind of like that thing where someone tastes salt on sweet watermelon for the first time, or has one of those flavor moments like they eat a fresh artichoke steamed with butter, and then they take a sip of milk, and then they eat more artichoke, and it like trebles the flavor of the artichoke. There are certain things that just happen with food. And I think with sour, bitter, and spicy, there is a wonderful, wonderful interplay. So I've played around with it as a chef my whole life. And I've always collected hot sauces and sort of been obsessed with hot sauce. And I think my favorite food story is the Tabasco conundrum, when they were trying to fight back the onslaught of all of the competitors in the 90s, where all of a sudden, because for decades they were the only hot sauce really sold nationally. And the McElhaney family started to suffer financially because of so many other hot sauces coming on the market. regional ones being sold in supermarkets and getting popular. And how they solve that problem is one of my favorite food stories of all time. So I guess, I don't know, it's just been in my zeitgeist. And, Spike and I met online, as, people do these days. And, the dating didn't work, but the professional relationship stuck. And
I tried.
Yeah, it was, but at the end of the day, I like to do, fun things with good people. And, I'm on the board of Giving Kitchen, and we had this idea that I think when it does roll out properly, we're in a soft opening. It's like a restaurant. We're in a soft opening right now, but it is going to. I have some here. Yeah. I mean, look at that. It's a gorgeous label. Tamarind peach hot sauce. It's absolutely wonderful. It is medium. It reminds me actually of a lot of Indian chutneys. In the nose, it has elements of there's a commercial sauce from the West Indies called Pick a Pepper. Yep. That is sold. I think every supermarket in America sells it. I'm not sure if a lot of people listening are familiar with it, but there's elements of that. There's a great. It's so beautifully balanced, and I'm not sure whether it's a condiment sauce, a grilling finishing sauce, a hot sauce, all of the above. But I am so proud of this collaboration. I know everyone says that, right? I'm supposed to be on here and say, oh my God, I just love this collaboration, all the rest of that. But it just was the easiest thing in the whole world. I think people are really, really, really going to love this when they start to see it pop up everywhere. I'm crazy about it.
Awesome. Thank you, by the way. Thank you. That meant a lot. I appreciate that.
Hey, Spike, your face is looking a little red there. You're blushing.
Oh, it's
just.
Do you guys know? I mean, this is my. I've done other hot sauce things, right? From local podcasts to hot ones and everything in between. But do you know the Tabasco "we're going out of business, what the fuck do we do" story?
No, actually, I don't.
I don't, and I know most hot sauce stories.
Oh my gosh, this is so great. So, and I've been told this by independent parties and by one of the companies involved. I just think this is the greatest story
real quick. Time. Is this something you want edited out, or do you want to?
Oh, no.
Okay.
This is, I want people to hear this. I just think it's the greatest story I've heard for a lot of reasons, and you'll see why when I'm finished. So essentially, every household in America, when you changed apartments and when you moved houses, you threw out the old Tabasco bottle because it was, the label was browned and people didn't refrigerate it, and eventually just lost its oomph. And, every recipe in America was created with, 2 dash, of hot sauce of, Tabasco. They even called it by name. And eventually, as the 80s grew into the 90s, all of a sudden, there were 40, 50, 60 hot sauce. I mean, now there's hundreds. I was at my supermarket this morning, and because I knew I was coming on today, I stopped counting at like 200 different hot sauces. That's at my supermarket, right? Which is just mainstream in Minnesota, by the way. Not where salt is an aggressive condiment. Anyway, the McElhaney started to lose a lot of market share. And they got a consulting company, like a McKinsey, to send someone down there. And their job was to spend 2 weeks down there on site in Avery Island, analyzing every aspect of the Tabasco business model, and to make some suggestions to the McElhaney family as to how they could regain some market share. And this young man flew down there, spent a day, and instead of staying the 2 weeks, left the next day. And he came home. His boss was reading the riot act because the McElhaneys had called and said, what's going on? This person was supposed to stay here for weeks and analyze all this stuff, and we have meetings with him, and we're taking him through the whole process and all the rest of that thing. And the young consultant said to the head of the company, you told me to go down there and, come back and write a a report and leave it on your desk. That was what I was told to do. And the boss is getting even more pissed off because now he thinks his employee is being insolent. And he says, well, where's the, you're darn right, but where's the report? He said, I put it on your desk. And the boss goes back into his office, and the young consultant follows him. And they walk in. He says, I don't see it. I don't see it. And the young consultant reaches over next to the phone, and he holds up a Post-it note he left there that says, bigger hole. So Tabasco doubled the hole.
Wow.
On their bottle, which, I will say, and I hope this story is true, and I believe it to be. But when I remember that thing, and that you were just sitting there, because I remember my parents complaining with, making Bloody Marys or something. And it's just like they were making a batch, and it was a glass bottle with this tiny little hole. And they made it bigger, so twice as much came out, because every cookbook, every magazine, everything was like 3 dashes hot sauce. So they doubled the use of literally overnight. Now, obviously, they've gone on to lose more market share, and then they've come back with a whole suite of other sauces, most of which are pretty bad. But I just love that. I love that story.
Flavor Balance Heat, the podcast for hot sauce lovers and makers, is brought to you by Irish Spike's unique hot sauces and Vandal pepper sauces. I'm Spike, the owner and executive saucier. Our sauces are handmade in the Pacific Northwest using the best possible ingredient. We believe that hot sauce equates to a balance of sensational heat coupled with a robust and complex flavor profile. Live your hottest life with Irish Spikes. Irish Spike's unique hot sauces and Vandal pepper sauces are available at saucecult.com. Did you ever have to, in the restaurant business, marry though? It was awful. We used to have we had to use a toothpick to marry the Tabasco.
The Tabasco had to look topped off. And it was crazy. And the holes were so small that if you actually got 2 bottles to balance on each other, the top one typically wouldn't drip. Yeah. I mean, it just was hours. Crazy stuff.
Those are called fun stoppers, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. 100%. I'm kind of, but I am a hot sauce and spice obsessed person. I think I have 7 chilies growing in my garden as we speak, several of which I'm drying right now. Some we use fresh. I probably have 150 different types of hot sauce here. I've been able to cull about 50 or 60. Something weird happens when you have a TV show or shows, or you've been on TV for 20 years regularly. People send you stuff all the time, and anyone who makes a hot sauce is like an easy thing to send. And, then I did hot ones and it got even worse, but I also bring things back from pretty far away places. The red chili flakes that I use here in my house are from a dried chili that I grind myself that I brought back from Senegal. And it is the most delicious table chili, dried chili condiment that I've ever tasted. It is the best of the best. And it doesn't have a name. I asked in the markets, the big open air vegetable markets where I was buying plastic baggies and stuff. And I loved it so much. I brought 3 or 4 plastic baggies, and I am now down to 2 inches of the ground stuff in a jar after, 6 years. And it's still wicked hot, and it's got such great flavor, and it's almost smoky because they dry the chilies on old pieces of corrugated aluminum siding, which is something that I've seen in the tribal world and in third world countries, and even some second world countries. But on a really hot day, it'll almost toast them. They dry so quickly, and it gets that slight smoky flavor. And I'm just nuts about these dried chilies. And chilies, by the way, are something that I can buy and smuggle pretty easily. I love smuggling. I'm a big smuggler. For my show and tell later, I took my favorite smuggled item out of my refrigerator, where I use so little of it because I don't know if I'll ever like the Senegalese chilies. Will I ever be able to get it again? Will I ever be in Senegal in those markets? I don't think so. Now, I travel enough that, I go up into my cabinet and I have, pounds and pounds of dried chilies. I try to give it away to friends that come here that like spicy things, just because someone should enjoy it before it dies. But yeah, I'm as obsessed as it gets.
Do you have a favorite chili pepper?
Oh gosh, probably the one that I cook with the most and season with the most is the Serrano. And the reason is I love the citrusy flavor of it. I like the heat component to it. Then I started growing my own cayenne peppers, and growing your own cayenne peppers got a wonderful, wonderful flavor. It's got a really shitty yield. That's the problem. It's just a shitty yield. Then I have friends in China that send me a lot of different Chinese chilies, some of which have no name. I have a friend who's Korean, whose mother smuggles seeds in from South Korea.
You better hope the wrong people don't hear this. grows their chilies, like literally, rents a piece of land every year so they can grow their own chilies, dry them, grind them, so they can literally have their own Korean hot pepper flakes. And she gave me a bag like this big. I mean, I have so many fun things like that. And I happen to love what a Korean chili, the flavor of one. But I think if it, I gear a lot of my recipes, because if I am writing a recipe for my Substack or for one of my TV shows or for the website, and I put on there, 1 teaspoon ground Senegalese chili, everyone, it's like an instant disconnect. It's like, oh my God, I hate fucking chefs that put ingredients in that only they have access to. I mean, that seems to be a very large complaint of people. So I try to use actually a lot of Serrano. Luckily, as someone who writes recipes and wants to get other people to cook, there are so many chilies now that are commercially available, dried and fresh in markets. Our supermarket has, 6 or 7 fresh spicy chilies and probably 10 dried ones, without going to the spice aisle. Right? They're there in the vegetable section of our local supermarket. And it just says a lot about how heat and chili heat has sort of swept the country. People love it. And it provides myriad different things that you can do with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. At our farmers market, it's great to see like little kids coming up and wanting to try the hot sauce, which I would never see that before. It's great.
Exactly.
Now, and my kids.
To be honest, I credit Hot Ones with actually spreading a lot of the gospel. Everyone likes to hate on the biggest dog on the porch, but I think Sean Evans and his team have probably done more to help just grow the gospel of heat than anyone. Obviously, I mean, it just touches tens of millions of people, and cumulatively hundreds, if not more, millions of people, and that's just an incredible thing.
That reminds me, I don't think I told you. So both of Zac and Claire have both been on, I'm pointing like I know where they're at. They've both been on Hot Ones. Zac's Tiki Hot Masala was on season, Zac? 15. And then Claire, you've been on a few different seasons. Claire is a Butterfly Bakery of Vermont, and Claire will only use, it's like within 200 miles, only ingredients within 200 miles.
Only produce within 200 miles.
Okay, yeah. She makes beautiful sauces.
Where are you based in Vermont, Claire?
In Barrie, Vermont.
Right
in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I've one of my best friends, Matt Jennings, lives there. A very well-known chef from the Boston area, who and his wife Catherine, maybe even more talented than he is, but they moved to Vermont right before COVID and have the Red Barn Kitchen up there. And they just I just love that part of the world. My parents lived in Maine for a long time, so and I spent my childhood in Vermont. I want to try your guys' sauces. I'm upset that I haven't.
I'd love to send you some. I'd love to send you some.
Please.
Yeah. Don't you know who I am?
Just kidding.
I got to tell you, of the sauce makers I've encountered that make good, really hot sauces, Zac is the best. He makes it. He gets the flavor through. He's absolutely the best.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
He doesn't like being when people praise him, but I mean, it's true. And his is High Desert out of Tucson.
Right on. That's amazing. Have you guys ever heard of the Merkin chili from the country of Chile down in Chiloé in Patagonia?
No.
I gotta say, it sounds familiar, but I have no idea why.
You're thinking of market,
but they make a paste out of it, and this is my last jar of it. And this one freaks. I bet, and I've not done it. I'm sure if I went on Amazon, this brand is probably right there, ready to sell it. Right, I'm sure, but I'm literally holding on to it, and I probably should look on Amazon. But this chili paste is unbelievable, and it allows, because it's a paste of the chilies with very few other seasonings. I think it's got like roasted onion and 1 garlic clove in or something like that. It feels like that's what it is. You can then make things with it. So you can throw a teaspoon in a vinaigrette. You can add it to something, to even a dry rub or any sort of wet seasoning you want, or a vinaigrette or a sauce. I actually made a beurre blanc with it, with tangerine last winter, and a dollop of this in there for fish that was absolutely absurd. But yeah, I have certain favorites like that I collect that I can't quite seem to get rid of in my heart or out of my refrigerator.
I'm Claire George. I own Butterfly Bakery of Vermont. We make hot sauce, mustard, cookies, and granola, and 100% of our products are made with Vermont ingredients. The thing that I hear most often from people is that my hot sauce tastes like the peppers that are in it. We do really simple recipes that don't get too crazy and nitpicky, just to really accentuate the flavor of the peppers that are in there. The unique thing about our hot sauces is how much we feature the farm and the relationship with the farm, and really bring the terroir of Vermont to our hot sauces. I am pretty sure I am the #1 purchaser of Vermont-grown chili peppers. I would love it if there would be a legitimate pepper market in Vermont where people would know Vermont for its peppers. We're all better for supporting each other. You know, and I think that part really shows itself with the collaborations that I do with the other businesses and the other farms, that I love working together and coming up with new ideas and presenting each other with new challenges. And I think overall that's the attitude here, and I absolutely love it because that's my attitude. I try to live my life with love. The ingredients that I use, I would say that my values are reflected in that, that I use ingredients that, again, feel good, feel loving, feel supportive. The relationship with the farmer was how it all began. If I changed the reason for it being, if I went out and bought some commodity peppers, you know, it might not be as good.
You can find Butterfly Bakery of Vermont hot sauce, mustard, granola, and cookies at butterflybakeryvt.com. Can you think of a hot sauce that you've experienced in your travels that have not seen on the shelves of a grocery store in the last 5 years? I'm sure there's many, but
gazillions. Yeah. And quite frankly, those really interest me a lot. Getting something on a shelf is a whole separate thing, right? Then, is it good? Is it tasty? Who makes it? Is it made from natural ingredients? You know, does it have boundaries that other people sort of are into and respect, like Claire's 200-mile, you know, produce rule? But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, when you just think, I talk to people about, you know, Chinese food all the time. They're like, oh yeah, well, you know, hot sauce. And I'm like, they're like chili oil. And I'm like, how about 300 kinds of fermented chili bean paste? How about 400 kinds of chili vinegars that they make there? I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd. I talked with someone once about, I brought up the Chinese prepared meats. And they're like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, well, you know, the French have charcuterie. The Italians have salumi. The Chinese world of prepared meats, their world of charcuterie, dwarfs the Italian and French worlds put together.
it dwarfs the Italian, German, and French worlds of prepared put together. It's absurd. They will take every part of every animal and rub it, cure it, smoke it, salt it, preserve it, make sausages with it. And people are like, the Chinese make sausages? I'm like, oh yeah, they do. And so they have the same kind of attitude when it comes to sauces, spice mixtures, chili vinegars. And that's just that one country. Conversely, what I find really interesting is that in Mexico, it's like, there's like three kinds. Because everyone at home makes their own things with their fresh chilies and dried chilies. In other words, you wouldn't go to if you go to a Mexican supermarket, the hot sauce aisle has a bunch of American products there for Americanized communities that are down there, but there's like regional hot sauces, 2 or 3 from every state in Mexico that are made with whatever chilies are typically grown there. But it's not like they have some big thing, because everyone there has dried and fresh chilies, and they're making things that are spicy into paste and liquid form every day, depending what dish they're making, right? So it kind of goes up and down. I see a lot more type of new people doing new things with sauce here in America. And, I think that's really cool. I love our creativity. It's made for a very crowded market. There are some people like you guys, the three of you, who do it very well. There are weekend hobbyists like me that, I have one bottle left of a, fermented sauce that I made with a bunch of chilies from the farmer's market 2 years ago. I couldn't even tell you what chilies were in there. I didn't even write it down. I pureed the shit out of it. I let it sit for 6, 7, 8 months, strained it and bottled it. And it's delicious. It's really nice and funky, and it's got some wonderful heat. But I love what small little producers are making, where it's clearly a labor of love and not about, selling 1 million bottles, a month and becoming the next Crystal hot sauce or Tabasco or whoever is up there in that world.
I mean, Jake's like, I'll do that.
I sell 1 million bottles a month. I don't give a fuck.
I will.
Yeah, we're waiting for when the beer companies started buying up all the little beer companies. We're waiting for that to happen here. Like, come on, Tabasco, I'm ready to sell.
Yeah.
Yep, we're here.
The three of us are small potatoes compared to some of the other ones.
But you're making great artisan product, and something. Eventually, what happens is something like that hits, and it then becomes that next sort of, bigger product. And, as an entrepreneur, you can hold your growth down. I mean, Aaron Franklin style, right? I mean, the barbecue brisket king from Austin, Texas. He's a friend of mine, and long ago, I don't know, 20 years, he told me he'll make more brisket every day if his suppliers can get him the meat at the quality that he knows will deliver the product that his customers are used to experiencing. And that's his boundary, right? So you don't see him doing 1,000 pounds, a day mail order, which he could easily do, right? I mean, brisket, cryovac it, throw some ice in it and overnight it to people. I mean, he'd make a fortune. But he can't, because he has his own personal sense of integrity about the quality of what he's doing, right? So he's tried to diversify and do other things and open up other restaurants. But he's not in it because he wants to make a bazillion dollars from it. I think he's very content and happy with where he is and having made his mark. And it's similar in other categories as well. I brought a couple cool things that I've seen recently, if you want to see them.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Funny story. We were in Austin, and there was a line there at 9 a.m. and I'm like, I'm not fucking waiting in this line. I'm sorry.
Wow.
It's worth it.
I keep hearing that, but we found Terry Black's, and that was pretty good. So
Black's is great, and and Kreutz's is great, and La Barbecue is great, and there's a half dozen other places in the greater Austin metro that are literally great. I do believe, and I eat at all of them pretty regularly. In the sense that every year I'm eating at least all of those there, because I'll go down to Austin a couple times a year and wind up on a barbecue crawl with people. And sometimes I'm invited because they know if they go with me, chances are they're not really waiting online in very many places, which is pretty fun. I guess for them, sometimes it's fun for me. But I eat at them all really regularly. And I will say, people talk about Aaron's brisket, but they don't talk about his turkey breast or his sausage. And I mean, he does so many things really well. His sides, I think he's really a unique and singular talent. It doesn't mean there are other places that are not awesome and I don't love them. But I'm a real Franklin-ophile, I guess. He does have, I will say, just because I'm assuming that a lot of listeners are probably big fans of Austin barbecue. The building is like an old little house on the corner, and the line goes forever. And at some point around 12:30, 1 o'clock, one of the managers starts counting heads and grabs someone and says, here's a sign for you. Your meal's free, but guess what? You're the last one, because they just don't have any more barbecue. And the faces on the people who've waited a while at the end of the line who are not going to get their barbecue is just brutal. Now, what makes it worse is that I'm usually got my hat, my baseball cap, and my sunglasses, and my collar up around my head as I make my way. There's a secret door and a way in, and you get kind of brought into this little oasis that they've built. It's probably like 30, 40 feet long by about 20 feet wide. It's made up like a little restaurant, but there's only one table. It's a picnic table, and you can eat there in the middle of it in complete peace and quiet. And so I have taken friends and gone in there and gotten a chance, and they just bring you whatever, a little bit of everything kind of deal. And it's about as good as a food vibe gets, in that whole sort of like secret room. What is the one thing that's changed in your life for the last 25 years that you'd hate to give up when it comes to like notoriety? And I'm like, my ability to eat at Franklin Barbecue is probably right up there. Or to get into Katz's Deli without waiting online. Those are the really big ones.
Flavor Balance Heat is brought to you by High Desert Sauce Co. out of Tucson, Arizona. Zac is the owner and creative mind behind High Desert Sauce Co.'s hot sauces. He says, at High Desert Sauce Co. we make sauces that we love. The balance of bold heat and fresh flavor is the heart of our philosophy. We keep it simple by using the best ingredients we can get our hands on and letting the natural flavors run the show. High Desert Sauce Co. Just the good stuff. Visit High Desert at hdsauceco.com.
There's a chef who competed on one of the first seasons of Top Chef. Her name is Jamie Lauren. She was super highly regarded chef in Los Angeles, had worked at a lot of great restaurants. And after Top Chef, she started doing culinary production. And she became the culinary producer for many of the best food competition shows, where they have to have someone organizing all the food and all the ingredients and, cooking stocks and making base recipes and stuff like that. And I always used to love going on a show where she was the culinary producer, because there would always be a plate of some yummy something in my trailer, whenever I got there. About 3 or 4 months ago, she debuted a pickle, a mustard, and a hot sauce with a new product line of hers called Sauce on the Side. And she sells at the farmer's market, I think in Santa Monica, and she does mail order and stuff like that. She won't ship pickles during the summer, too many problems with temperature and things like that. But she has a hot sauce, I think it's named after her dog, called Hank's Hot Sauce. And it's that classic combination of habanero and carrot that I just think is fantastic. I love that, the only hot chili on the ingredient list, and she's no reason to lie, are habaneros, yet the label has a jalapeno on it.
which I find really remarkable. And she's going to change it. So sort of like a mistake on the baseball card. I'm going to save this bottle no matter what. But I really like this sauce, and it is no joke. It's hot, right? And I kind of appreciate that because I love the flavor of habaneros and Scotch bonnets. They have a very singular flavor.
I think I actually met her at a recent hot sauce show.
She's amazing.
She was, yeah, and the sauce was really good. Really enjoyed it.
It's really good. I'm a big fan of hers. I'm a Jewish kid from New York who likes spicy things. So go figure. I like mustard-based hot sauces or ones that have mustard in them as an ingredient. I find that mustard plays really well with heat. Right. I actually should show you one I smuggled from Russia. Actually, that I know I have somewhere in there. But this is a company called High on the Fire. They're from the Pacific Northwest, and they have a habanero hot honey mustard that's not too hot, but you taste the habanero in there that I think is really, really good. Have you come across the Russian mother-in-law mustard?
No.
No.
It's mustard. Good luck eating it. It's almost impossible to eat. There's so much mustard oil and horseradish oil in their mustard that like even the slightest bit just blows through your sinuses. I mean, people are like, oh, I really like wasabi. And I'm like, oh, just try this mustard. It's got a lot of horseradish. I'm like, yeah. And they can't eat that. But those are two that I really like that I've had recently. And Mike Pagal, who was the executive chef at Alinea for years in Chicago, has hot sloth, which I've written about a lot. He makes it in very limited batches. It's got a lot of perilla leaf in it. It's so unique. He ferments so many different ingredients and makes his own garum and stuff like that to make these sauces. They come in really small, pretty bottles. It's very expensive, made by one of the best chefs in the world who loves hot sauce. And this is his. And again, one of my favorite hot sauces in the whole world. I absolutely love what he's doing.
Andrew, have you done any making of mustard?
I have. And here's my thing about mustard. It's people come to my house for dinner and I serve bread with dinner. Sometimes I'm having pasta or big, certain meals just call for a big crusty loaf of bread and a great salad is sort of all that goes with it.
Every meal deserves that.
They sit there and they smell it and they look at each other and go, oh, did you make the bread? I'm like, the day I can bake better than the 6, 7, 8 bakers whose bake shops I frequent in the Twin Cities is the day I'll start making bread. Not my thing. Other stuff I will obsess over and spend 3 days making from scratch. Bread's not one of them. I'm not a dough meister. Nor am I really like a mustard guy. I made a bunch at one of my restaurants for a long time that, because we wanted to have homemade mustard on the menu. And it was good. It's just that, I tasted other people's mustards and I'm kind of like, ooh, wow, that's better. And then I found a mustard flour maker in Hokkaido in Japan through my friends at the Japanese Pantry, which is an online place to order Japanese goods. I should tell people, if you're listening and you love a lot of these things, go to andrewzimmern.com, become a subscriber to Spilled Milk, my Substack, and, subscribe to my YouTube and do all the normal things, and you will be inundated with stories of the Japanese Pantry and the Mala Market and other places where I get my supplies and things that I like to use. But the folks at Mala Market changed dry mustard powder suppliers. And they found this guy in Hokkaido. And I bought a bag of that flour. And now that's the mustard that I make for almost everything except my hot dogs. I'm just obsessed with this Japanese mustard. I do like, Feltman's and Goulden's and, stadium mustard from Cleveland and that typical brown deli mustard that's got that little horseradishy kick. That's what I grew up on. And so that's the mustard that I like on my sandwiches and my hot dogs. But then 1,000 other uses for mustard. And when I'm serving, a dollop of it with, Japanese meatballs on the grill, or a steamed chilled brisket with sweet potato noodles,
I quit.
The South Korean staple.
No, you're killing me with all this food, man. You're killing me with all this food.
Yeah. Zach's on a special diet. But that's where I like to take out that mustard. And fried chicken, if you're making like homemade chicken fingers with something sweet and that I like to make myself, and a really good mustard is out of control. I will say I've found, and this is one of those deals where I've probably spent, I don't know, Malcolm Gladwell says you're an expert if you spend 10,000 hours doing something. I've easily spent a gazillion hours cooking, right? And I'm not going to pretend I'm not at the big kids table in the food world, right? And I love grilling chicken wings. I love charred chicken wings, charred chicken legs, charred chicken thighs. I hate chicken breasts, but wings, legs, and thighs, get really nice char on there, dip it into different sauces, pull it out, let it finish indirect heat, and just get, the way that you would with Alabama white or something.
You're fucking killing me, man. I'm not even joking. You are fucking killing me right now.
Yeah, I've been told for a long time they don't like to listen to me talk about food for that very reason.
Oh, man, I could listen for a long time.
If my circumstances were different, I would sit here for fucking days and listen to like legit fat-free ground fucking beats.
I kept experimenting with different things. I liked Paul Prudhomme in the 70s when he was the chef at Commander's Palace in New Orleans, would take an entire standing rib roast, prime rib, 8 bones, and he would char it on the grill, blacken it, right? Just let the fat drip down, flames come up, blackened, ice cold, blue in the middle. Then he would let it cool for an hour, cut it into steaks, big, steaks, and giant ribeyes on the bone. And he would then marinate that for 48 hours in a red wine marinade. It's in his first cookbook. And the crust from that char, it would just suck all that liquid up way more than raw meat would, right? So then when he seared it and threw it underneath the broiler to finish, what resulted was a steak experience he could offer his customers that was second to none. And I started to think to myself, I love chicken. I should just very simply season the chicken, grill it, get that nice char on it, and then toss it in a finishing sauce before serving, much in the same way that what's that wing that is everywhere? The one with celery sticks, and it's just hot sauce wings. And butter.
Buffalo.
Yeah. Thank you. Buffalo style. That's done off the, for anyone who loves those things and doesn't realize, they're fried and then they're dumped into butter and hot sauce and tossed, right? And so I started playing around with it, and I found that like cheap apricot or peach preserves, equal parts with good strong Dijon mustard mixed together, just toss your hot wings in that and let it coat, is like the sweet sour mustard vibe of your dreams. I would encourage you to try it.
That sounds great.
If that sounds like it's your vibe. Not you, Zach. Sad.
I hate all of you.
Join us next week for part 2 of our interview with Andrew Zimmern. This has been a Spike Mind Media production.